What's up, YouTube? So the Scalar 1.7 update just came out, and I want to have a quick look at some of the new features as well as use it in a sort of track arrangement kind of thing that I'm currently working on. So if you haven't seen my previous video on this awesome plugin, link is in the description, and if you do end up liking the plugin and you haven't got it yet, the link is also going to be in the description. So anyway, let's dive in and have a look at Scalar 1.7. So I've got this kind of melody that I've written that's kind of more suited to a sort of minimal melodic kind of ambient arrangement. You know, maybe just like a melody and some sort of pads and chords and stuff like that, as opposed to like a whole sort of percussion, drum beat and that kind of thing going. I kind of want to create more of a sort of ambient vibe as opposed to a groove, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to go a bit more in depth with the chords of the pads. Rather than just having them play single notes, I kind of want to work more on the kind of MIDI, and I kind of want to work more on the kind of like musical aspects in this arrangement. So let's use Scalar 1.7 to do so. So anyway, before we get started, I'm going to give you guys a quick run through of what this sort of melody that I've created sounds like. You can actually check the MIDI here. You can copy it if you want. I don't mind at all. But that being said, basically just know what notes are in the C minor scale, and then I just sort of plucked notes until it sounded good and sort of went on from there and looped certain sections and stuff like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a sort of chord or scale that works, and then I'm going to transpose this melody to fit into that chord set and kind of create a kind of sort of arrangement around those two elements. So I created some notes here, but it really wasn't that great, so I'm just going to delete those for now. So when you open the plugin, once you've updated, you actually get a quick sort of run through with a sort of quick tour of some of the new features and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is we're actually going to run through this quickly and go through some of the new features. So along the top of the plugin, you had your keyboard layout, but you also had a fretboard layout for, you know, the guitarists and stuff like that. If you wanted a more sort of familiar look to creating your chords and stuff, well, in the latest update, they've actually added a couple of other instruments, support for 4, 5, 6-string basses, as well as a couple of other things. So here, it looks like they've added the ability to find a scale to fit a particular progression at any time. So what I could do is I could feed the MIDI of that progression that we've created into Scalar and create some chords from there. Or we could sort of create some chords in Scalar and transpose the MIDI from the track. Either way, let's just play around with a couple of those options. Having more features in this type of plugin is cool because it kind of creates various types of sort of creative workflows that you can sort of try out. And whichever ones you find more successful, you can obviously work into your kind of like everyday music production process. I mean, like with me, I'm always trying sort of new ways of creating music. And it's in those kind of like experimentations which I find my kind of new workflows, and I kind of carve out kind of new ideas for myself, which I then end up using pretty much all the time. So it looks like they've just added a couple of features to make things a little bit easier with previewing and dragging and dropping. They've added a bunch of new chord sets. So if you just kind of want to find new ideas for a particular genre or a particular style that you're going for, they've got a bunch of different sort of built-in stuff. I know that they've added in version 1.6, they actually added a bunch of sort of cinematic chord sets which actually sound amazing for that kind of thing. And then they've added the ability to, I believe, cycle through different sort of diatonic chords using this button over here. And I think what that does is it shifts all of the chords in your kind of builder over here, as opposed to having to go and shift them one by one, which is pretty cool. Just sort of increases the workflow there a little bit. And they've also done a couple of bug fixes and stuff like that. I think in the previous version, the arpeggiator was a little bit buggy, and it looks like they've kind of worked on a couple of those, as well as added a couple of new sounds to like previewing the actual chords themselves. But anyway, let's move on to using this in a track. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to send MIDI from this lead that we've created into this chord detector, and we're going to see what we can come up with. Cool, so I found a couple of chords that I think work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to drag MIDI and just pop that onto this MIDI channel, I think with Omnisphere that I made. So here, what it does is it basically places all those sort of MIDI chords that we've created. So what I want to do is I actually want to chop them up and kind of rearrange them into, how I please. I might not want the like A, B, C, D, E, F, if that makes sense. I kind of want to rearrange them and stuff. So let's see what we come up with here. I don't like how it kind of like goes into the upper octaves and then back into the sort of down octaves. So then what you can do is you can actually like sort of glue them all together, and then I actually find the ones that are sticking up too far and I just kind of move them down an octave, shift downwards. Sometimes, for example, here you'll get a part where it kind of has two notes that are one semitone apart. If that happens, I probably wouldn't suggest that. I would move, undo and then not move that one down an octave, if that makes sense. So that would be this guy. I would actually end up, redo here. I'll end up moving this octave up again or not moving, just that guy. But anyway, let's have a listen to what this sounds like. Okay, now let's try it the other way around. Let's try out some of the chord sets that are kind of built in and some of the presets that are built in, and maybe transpose our MIDI pattern to fit those. So these new sort of cinematic chord sets kind of have these sort of very descriptive titles. So, for example, it's got conclusive, and it's kind of like in the F major scale, and it kind of gives you that kind of like resolution. It obviously would be very useful in a kind of like ending scene or something like that in a movie. So if you are scoring performance, stuff like that, this is also very, very helpful to kind of get a quick idea of something like that might work and then sort of build around that, Yeah, very, very cool stuff here. So yeah, let's just listen to some of these other sort of chord sets and stuff built in. Called Ode to Hans, so it's obviously like an ode to Hans Zimmer, I'm guessing. So what we can do is, if we want to copy all of these chords down here, they've actually introduced this new feature, Copy All to Builder. So it says here it'll replace the current progression, and yes, please do, because the current progression sucks compared to this one. And so what we can do now is we can actually drag this over again like we did before, and it's created us another MIDI pattern. The timing on this one is a bit weird. Let's just listen to how the arrangement is kind of like laid it out. So here we can actually go in and edit them. I think like this first one, let's just zoom out a bit here. This first one, we can have it go like twice the length, and then have the other ones like the same size, maybe even stretch the entire thing once we've done that. So let's just move these across, and then do the same here, and keep doing that. Actually, this last passage, we can maybe leave it like that to kind of create like suspense at the end or something, I don't know. So here, then, yeah, okay, so what we can do now is we can actually stretch the entire thing, and let's listen to what this sounds like. Sounds fantastic so far. So that was in a B flat minor setting. And B flat minor is 2 semitones below C, I believe. Wait, let me double check. Is 2 semitones below C. So what we can do is we can actually, what did I do? We can actually, let's just drag this MIDI back onto our serum channel, and then we can go here and just transpose this -2. And now this lead should be in B flat minor, and it should work with our chords. Let's have a listen.